Welcome, everyone, to the 2022 NSF Spring Summit Ticketing Workshop. Today, we're going to focus on a really hot topic in the industry to many in sports, which is current staffing trends and the workplace in general, coming out of a kind of a wild few years that we've had here. We've seen some people change course entirely on the way that they're staffing and the way that, they're doing business within the ticket office itself. We've all worked in the sports business for many, many years, or at least a lot of us have. And I think when a lot of us started in this industry, we started with, a small but mighty group of people, sometimes calling quite candidly prospects out of a phone book to do our jobs without a lot of tech capabilities or expectations. We were aspirational in our goals. As the scale of the business and magnitude of the business has changed over time, so have our teams. And it has oftentimes our ticket sales teams have expanded into several groups within itself and dozens of employees. And in 2020, early 2020, when the pandemic hit, a lot of that changed for a lot of folks. And as we kind of resurface into a normal environment, we're thinking about things differently in some cases. So I've got a couple of very special guests here today that I wanted to talk about this specific topic with. First, I'd like to introduce Rich Kuchar from the Chicago White Sox. Rich has served over 21 years of business leadership service with the White Sox. He currently serves as the director of ticket service and retention for the team. He's a graduate of Blackburn College and lives in southwest suburbs of Chicago with his wife, Katie, and his sons, Ryan, Michael, Henry, and daughter, Jane. Second guest is Paige Farragut. Paige is entering her 26th year in the sports field, working for and within front office environment, as well as her newest and latest endeavor, actually on the tech side, working with FIVO. Prior to FIVO, Paige was with the Texas Rangers, serving in a leadership role within their ticket sales and service department, overseeing all facets of ticket sales, premium, and luxury suites for over 12 seasons. So she'll bring an interesting perspective as well. So with that, I'd love to just welcome our two guests. Rich, Paige, welcome. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
Great. So why don't we dive right in? And I'll start with you, Rich, but I'm interested to hear from both of you. Let's go back to the very beginning of 2020. I'm curious to kind of understand the landscape and maybe what your ticket sales office looked like prior to this disruption we all went into.
Yeah, so prior to 2020 pandemic times, we had roughly about 35 to 45 sales and service reps in our department. We varied from the retention team to the group sales team, premium team, the new business development team, and sales associates. Just main focus on retention, selling new business, cultivating and growing prospects, through form submissions, just like everyone else does. So nothing too crazy in that regards. And I know a lot of teams are set up very similar to that too.
Great. And Paige, I know prior to obviously the pandemic, you were still in your role with the Rangers. Can you tell us a little bit about what your group looked like back then?
Absolutely. We were not only selling the last year of Globe Life Park while we were at Globe Life Park, we'd also been selling the new ballpark for, in some cases, 2 years. Contracts were signed in some cases 18 months prior. We were fully staffed. And we were about to open with our very first event, which was the Chris Stapleton concert at Globe Life Field. And we had just had clients up at spring training in Arizona. And we're talking about, God, how sad, there's COVID up in Seattle. We're great. We're so lucky we live, in the South. We won't have to deal with any of it. Then we got home on a Tuesday, Friday the 13th. Ironically, I came to work that day, and Stapleton, they were tearing down the stage, and they sent us all home. So all the work we'd done, hiring people, knowing that people had not only stayed with us for a long time, but also decided to stay with us because they got a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to open a brand new ballpark that was also going to be year-round events, stayed with us longer than maybe going to get the next best job because it was such a unique opportunity. And next thing you know, they shut us down and everybody had to go home that Friday.
Yeah, and I'll chime in that my experience was obviously very similar. I felt like we had kind of hit our stride to a certain extent in the sense that we had our first full-scale group sales, premium sales, business development, inside sales and season ticket sales group. It was the first time we had kind of specialized in 5 different areas. I think we had about 30 full-time employees at that point. So a really robust group, and something that, quite candidly, we had seen built from 2009 to 2020, 11 years to kind of build the sales team the way that we wanted. When we hit that day, and to your point, I was actually set to leave to spring training that evening while games were being canceled. I don't think any of us knew what to expect. Even when we left the office that day, I think we all fully anticipated to be back in 2 weeks. And every market was a little bit different in how they responded. So, Paige, I know you had an interesting story about kind of how things were handled at the Rangers. I know with the Giants, quite candidly, we were shut down for about a year and a half, here in San Francisco. They were taking things extremely cautiously, but how were things handled in Dallas in terms of bringing folks back to the office and kind of how you guys pivoted?
Well, it was exceptionally disappointing that we were leaving to begin with because of the multi-years that had gone into it. We were very blessed because we did have that brand new ballpark that only 1,000 people had actually laid eyes on a couple weeks prior. So we got sent home for 5 weeks. We were very unique in that we came back on May 5th. So a lot of the staff felt like that was a great idea. Certainly there were cases that other people did not. And we did go through a lot of things that made people feel safe. But for me personally, I was thrilled to be back because we had the ballpark, we had to keep selling, and we did have the newest, cleanest place in the country to host games. The tough part was, as we all did, we had to pivot and ask ourselves, how are we going to treat season ticket members? Are we doing refunds? Are we assuming that the schedule is going to be moved? But like you said, people left and thought they'd be back in 2 weeks. Yes, the Rangers were close. We all thought that the season would start very soon, that the pandemic would be solved and we would get back at it. So the way we were able to come back into the office was great. And we came back at full capacity to April, and then things started changing month by month.
That's great. And did you, flashing forward, once it was determined that the MLB season wouldn't progress, did you guys experience layoffs or furloughs with your staff?
We eventually did end up furloughing people in July. And that was really tough because we were about to start our season without people in the stands, but the season was starting. But because of the impact to ticket sales, merchandise, parking, all of those things went into account for, okay, we're not going to be able to have humans in the ballpark. What are we going to do to be able to keep the doors open? And so we did have to furlough staff, which I will say for my team at the time, and it was a team of 40, that was devastating. Because it was devastating for anybody, but those people that moved here, we had a lot of people that we hired a couple years prior that moved here and that were intentionally staying because of this. And we were sending them home to their apartments by themselves. It wasn't like everybody had a community or a network of people that they could call and get to know. And in some cases, there were people that had been there 6 or 8 months and they were really going home to an empty apartment. So we had to come up with new ways to innovate and treat them. But it was certainly challenging letting those people go.
Yeah, it's a really great point, Paige. I think especially once you've been in the business for maybe as long as the three of us have, you forget that the workplace is where you create some of your best friendships, especially for our younger staff that come in. And it was crushing for them to get disbanded at that point. It was kind of like their whole universe came down around them. Rich, I'm curious, I think you experienced some layoffs or furloughs as well. For the folks that did stay around, how did work responsibilities change, while there were no fans in the seats, or, while we were in pod seating environments or those types of things for your team?
Yeah, actually, Matt, I may have given you some misinformation. We were one of few teams that did not furlough or lay off anyone.
Phenomenal.
We were very fortunate with our ownership group, kept everyone. Now, however, I will say we did have some people leave on their own. And when they did, we didn't replace those staff members until we were back in the office full time. So yeah, we were very fortunate as an organization to have that happen. I would say that, like both of you mentioned, we thought 2 weeks and we were going to be back in the office, and that really wasn't the case once we started getting into this. And our focus really shifted towards making sure we were taking care of the season ticket holders and communicating every step of the way to them, letting them know what was happening. Even when we didn't have information, we were trying to just over deliver with them and let them know, hey, we're working through this process. As soon as we have information on what we're doing in regards to refunds or credits or bonus credits. We kept that going. And then, once we started getting games officially postponed and canceled, that's when the organization really took the steps into our own hands and said, listen, we're going to do right by every customer. If they want a refund, we're going to offer them a refund. However, if they want to keep their money with us, we offered people a bonus credit to keep their money with us for the renewal for the following season, or for their group business or their suite or whatever they might be doing. So it was definitely challenging. I mean, everyone really turned into a service and retention person at that point. And really, it was all hands on deck. We had my retention team at the time, I believe, was 6 strong. And we paired them up with a group representative and a new business representative. And they were dishing emails out, voicemails out to everyone, and everyone had a buddy. It was kind of like a buddy system for them to help and make sure they're following up within 24, 48 hours with all their clients.
That's
One
fantastic.
Sorry, Matt, if I can add on to that, like what you said, you have this, a part in your road where you're like, okay, what do we do? Become service reps, even though we still have to sell this multi-billion dollar, $1.4 billion ballpark. And so for the first 5 weeks when people were at home, and we shifted, it's like, what can we do not only to take care of our human capital, the human beings that are selling it, but what can we do to also take care of our season ticket members? And some things that we did to engage clients had nothing to do with sales. I'm sure we copied this from another team, but we had this toolkit created that the rep went first and put what Netflix show they were binge watching, a recipe that they had done or started to do or use that they hadn't used before, a picture of their dog or cat, or where's their favorite place to go out and just clear their mind. And we sent those and then asked the clients to customize those as well. And then what we did with that information is used it in broadcasts, little bits and pearls of wisdom about our clients to try to keep them engaged with the Ranger product. So we did that, which was really successful. And then we went completely old school. One of the guys that worked for me and I went up to the ballpark and had like a car wash line, but a line where clients drive through, where first we passed out envelopes and personal stationery from the Rangers and just wrote, thank you, nothing about sales. Thank you for being a partner. We look forward to seeing you soon at Globe Life Field. And we were selling hope from that point on. It was no more about, if someone wanted to talk and vent and talk about how they had been impacted by COVID and how it was going to financially hurt them, like the White Sox, we gave their money back. Anytime someone had a hardship, 100%. Then 2 weeks later, the person and I came back, we took all the filled out envelopes and notes, send them to the clients, and people reached out and said, you're the first person that we owed money to, first company that actually checked in on us without mentioning, well, I know this is tough times, but you owe us money. So it was those personal touches that kept the clients engaged. And not only the client, it was two-sided. It was also to take care of our reps and service team that was, like I said, in some cases alone, but doing those little things really helped. And then we thought, okay, we're at home for that 5 weeks. What can we do to be fun? So I had everybody send me a baby picture of themselves and then also send this 20-question get to know the sales representative, service person, and fun little things. So then first I sent the picture out, then the reps would try and guess. And once they guessed who it was, we sent the get to know your person, and then it had all those fun facts. So those little things, and I think even doing those today, stuff like that to keep your team engaged, even in current times, or some fun things you can do that don't cost the company any money.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I actually think a ton of good came from that time period. The most unfortunate thing was the series of layoffs for us. We did lay off about 3/4 of our sales staff, to be candid. We had about 5 or 6 sales staff remaining that were primarily managers and directors, kind of being thrust back into the role of sole contributors for the time. However, what it made, the positive that was made out of the situation was, to your point, we thrust so much energy onto our season ticket members at that point that those people got to believe that their company cared about the customer first, right? We've never been that customer first in my entire tenure. And that's not a knock on the organization. It's just saying we were very genuine in whatever the customer wanted, we would provide. And so we had open ears and would really have an open canvas. The other part of it was we got to engage with groups like Giants Enterprises, who handles our non-game day events on virtual programming. We got to connect with our partnership groups to create assets to leverage in those virtual programs that we put together. And we got to collaborate with our marketing group on how we wanted to present these packages. So our salespeople all of a sudden became specialists in non-baseball events, in sponsorship, and in the marketing aspects. So they became kind of mini marketers in their own right. So, in terms of creating opportunity for sales staff, I actually think, make lemonade out of lemons here, right? Like this is something where people now have a broader spectrum and broader idea of what you can do within a sports organization and might pick a new path that they want to head down long term. So I think there has been a lot of positive there. Let's flash forward to now, right? We've all had time. We've now had, plenty of games under our belt with a full stadium, and our fans are packing the seats, which is phenomenal to see. And Paige, you're out there kind of, from an outside perspective, visiting with teams about the technology that you can provide. But I'm curious either whether it's within your own organization or other organizations that you're visiting, kind of what you're seeing in the workplace right now. Are people going back to full capacity? Is their strategy for staffing different than it used to be? And how are they adapting?
Yeah, it's very interesting because the old days that we've talked about, and we'll talk about this later on the panel, it used to be you worked for a team, you could get paid absolutely nothing. It was cool to have your business card that you work for whatever teams are important in that particular city. It's different now. And then while we did furlough people for the Texas Rangers, we were able to get back to full capacity by January 1. And the only reason we could do that is because we had that ballpark to sell, and we could justify the expense because guess what? We got to host the NLCS championship in the World Series. So that was a huge opportunity to leverage the human capital with our season ticket members and group clients to have them come out. So we were able to do that with a certain capacity. So we needed teams to do that. It's not like you can just put tickets online for a $15,000 suite and it's going to sell automatically. And then so we were able not only to bring people back, but also leverage Texas Ranger baseball, because we saw the Dodgers win on our field. That sadly was probably the closest we were going to get to a World Series in a while. Hopefully they'll get there. But that for the Texas Rangers, and I understand it's very specific, allowed for engagements, allowed us to bring back a team, and they are still fully staffed. And so now that I'm on the tech side and going out and visiting teams, there are still teams that don't allow people to come into their office. There are teams that are fully staffed at full capacity. There's teams that you can only go in if you have to work a game. So every time we have a meeting and go on site or Zoom, because of the way they're structured, it's interesting to see how people across the country are handling it so different. And what they're doing, because of FIVO and different companies that are out there, you are able to sell with less humans. You are able to do things that you weren't able to do before. And people are more comfortable doing things in a way that they weren't in the past. But staffing wise, I think there are fewer teams that are fully staffed pre-2020 than there are today. I know you guys have done things to engage with people. But yeah, I think a lot of people, even the Rangers, we invited people to come back from furlough and they said no. And we were shocked. We're like, what? What do you mean? I mean, we're about to open this ballpark. And they were like, it was too stressful. It was a lot. What if it happens again? What if another variant comes out? Or they back out looking for a job? So a lot of people went to companies that worked across multiple platforms just instead of just a specific team. But I will tell you, gone are the days of just having the business card that says a team. And there has to be new ways to engender people to stay committed and stay long-term with the team, because people get offers now. And one of the best opportunities to hire people is go to a sports team that's furloughed people. There are people to hire.
Agreed. And you're making me blush a little bit because we don't go in unless there's a game day. We, for the most part, are still out of the office. We are not bringing headcount back fully. We are that organization. We're being cautious and being very conservative with how we're kind of re-entering. We have certainly hired back up, but we're just going to take things slow and try to do more with less and kind of see what that strike point is with a balance between technology and staffing that is the right fit for kind of this modern era for the Giants. And I feel like we're getting closer and closer there. Companies like yours, like FIVO, I'd mentioned Conversica in the past, and others that are kind of helping us to bridge that gap between bringing back an inside sales staff of 8 people versus bringing in what technology. We've got to think about those things. And it really also helps us to pour our energy into our best reps and getting the best talent on board, as opposed to kind of trying to fill the room, so to speak, with,
Absolutely.
the 30 plus people that we might have had previously. So Rich, any other thoughts on that piece?
You hit on a great point there, is bringing the right staff members into the building. We're definitely not fully staffed yet since we've all come back to the office last year. We're still looking for people in certain positions as new business development and a few on our premium team and some sales associates. But in the past we used to maybe roll the dice on someone, maybe take a chance on someone who may not be the right fit at the time. But gone are those days where you can just people are beating down your doors because they want to work in sports, like Paige said. I mean, it's now we need to make sure we're focusing on hiring the right people that are going to be in the right position for a few years, and hopefully grow within our organization into management levels. So that's kind of where we're at with our hiring process too.
And I will say, I would have anticipated that we would have done the exact same thing, but only because we were year round and we had the new ballpark to sell. Were we able to staff back up? I think this did and does still allow people to really look at their needs assessment and get the right mix versus just every seat has to be filled. We're going to burn them out. They can work as many hours they want. The cream will rise to the top and then we'll get rid of the rest. It's not like that.
Yeah, agreed. And honestly, good riddance to that time, right? to some extent. So I think it's great. Moving on, like with the pace of business seems to be picking up, and it's just us being back, but it just seems like the velocity at work is the pace is different than it's ever been before, which is spectacular, right? We're getting great marketing support, and there's great tools out there that are helping us to generate more leads ongoing. Gone are the days of us getting a list of cold leads and having to crank out phone calls to people not expecting our calls. Like, we're getting flooded like a fire hose with, people raising their hand saying, I'm interested in learning about your product or your ballpark or whatever you're selling. With that, and in some instances with smaller staffs that you're trying to operate with, obviously the need for tools to keep up with that pace is really important. And the needs to supplement certain areas of the business is also important. So as an example on Paige, we talked about using FIVO, not to give you the full pitch here, but using you guys to try to sell lower end suites online, to take that work out of the hands of the reps who we want focusing on higher end deals. That's one small piece of what we're trying to do to kind of pull some of the manual work away and have the reps focus on the work that we deem the most important for them to be focusing on. But what are you seeing out there in terms of what teams are using, whether it's communication tools or prospecting tools or, artificial intelligence? Are there things that you're seeing out there that are working effectively for clubs?
Well, out there, and also looking back as well with the Rangers, even with the opportunity of having the full staff, we still needed to innovate and be faster, better, because you're selling a full year-round menu. So different things like artificial intelligence, making sure that you have the best CRM analytics person there is, because one of the things that we all tried to do in our time at home, and even now, was look at what are some efficiencies that we're missing? What could we do that's different today that makes it to where the rep's not working 12-hour days? What can we do to provide qualified leads versus the stack of just past buyers? What can you do? So for instance, instead of looking at StubHub buyers in your ticketing system that came out to the game, some things we did, we're looking at the StubHub buyers in the premium areas that can really make an impact on revenue before they come out. And then figuring out, you can tell if it's someone local or, is it a broker sale that's being pushed out, and having reps go down and visit them or call them in advance and say, look, I know you're going to be sitting in the Lexus Club. I'd like to meet you. So having tools to create campaigns that are more efficient, in addition, the Conversicas, all the different platforms, and I would be remiss if I didn't say FIVO. One thing that FIVO can do that we were doing, but not to the degree that other teams were. Of course, it's a great tool for a group platform. It makes it easy for a group buyer to go in and not have to print tickets or digitally send 1,000 tickets. But beyond that, what we're seeing is teams are putting their suites out on the web, which before was very protected inventory. I was the same mentality. We have sales reps. Why would we put those online? Brokers can get them. Well, what we found with the teams that have been willing to do it, MLB and other teams, is the majority of sales happen from 6 p.m. till midnight. So it's people that get home from work or they're out with their friends. And if you have the discretionary money, or your company does, and you're at a game and you're like, you know what? Oh my gosh, we just saw an individual suite ad up on the video board. Let's do that. I had no idea you could even do that. And friends get together. And because of the pandemic, I think the way people buy things and consume data is very different. Where before you would never throw down a credit card for a suite for one night, that you will normally be, well, what's our food? Can we change Pepsi to Coke or vice versa? Can we get a player to come up and see us in the suite? Now people can do that literally with a few clicks and it's done. And then the thing that the teams are utilizing by having technology that allows those opportunities is through the Fevo platform. You get every single buyer's analytics, and 40% of most buyers through Fevo of all sales are brand new unique buyers. And the teams are actually in charge of that data. They can go in the team and say, okay, Texas Rangers play the White Sox. Who are new buyers, or who are people that came in from Chicago? Is it a team that travels well? And we can use those data points to then push out data versus the piles of analytics we get, but then we really don't know what to do with them. So people using technology that is fast and quick on their platforms, because we all know how it is. You know, you log in TM, tickets.com, you get your tickets, but in some cases, people don't want to go through all the steps to get them. I think our attention span is tiny. I know mine has gotten smaller over the years. And I think now everything's moving to mobile. In fact, most of our sales through Fevo are actually through mobile. So I do think people are looking at other ways to sell tickets that don't require full-time salary, benefits, overtime, all of the things. You pay one fee and then you can sell tickets on the side. And then what you do for the rep side of it, because of course you want to take care of the salespeople, if those leads come in and they're paid in full, what we would have done is passed them off to people. And if they can upgrade them that year, they would get paid on the delta or incremental food and beverage. But from that moment on, the second they add on inventory, they own that sale. So it's also a way to provide new leads to the reps.
No, agreed. And it's all about working smarter, and working smarter is going to help us empower our reps to do the jobs that they want. Our reps come into these roles thinking they're going to close $1 million deals and spend the first 2 years closing, $1,000 value suites. So, how do we meet in the middle? And part of that is what you're talking about, getting some of that work off their plates, letting them focus attention on the larger stuff. Rich, at the White Sox, you guys, I think, deal with a high volume of work as well in terms of just the number of leads flowing through. What are you doing to help your reps qualify those leads and ultimately kind of, prioritize those leads maybe with the highest value?
Yeah, so we do work real close with our analytics folks, and through Fevo that we use as well, and then through also the wheelhouse that MLB has set up as far as data collection points are concerned. Our guys do a good job of kicking out the most qualified ones to us, whether that's largest spend, closest distance to the ballpark, multiple games that they've come out to. Long ago are the days where we're just opening up a phone book and just calling people and pitching them White Sox stuff. There's no more cold calls. It's all warm calls, people that have filled out forms or visited our website that we get the data back from and can tell that they were on the season ticket page for a few minutes. We're getting a hold of those folks and being better about utilizing our reps' time. I mean, they're still cranking 50, 60 calls a day, but those calls are to more qualified people, and we're seeing the results from that. We're closing business quicker than we have in the past. It doesn't take as many phone calls. It still takes quite a few calls, but the people are more engaged with us now, and they're ready to purchase when we get to that point in the conversations.
And one thing, Matt, to add on to that, another thing that teams are doing that weren't necessarily standard operating procedure in the past, right now Fevo has the partnership with Costco, and teams can put their product in Costco stores and then go online and get the product, or they can be on Costco.com, where before sponsorship teams may push back and say, well, why would we do that? Costco isn't a sponsor. And so what I did early on with Fevo, I called Jim Cochran at the Rangers and I said, you guys partner with Costco, walk me through the mindset of where you are to drive a narrative where sponsors aren't required to be in some long contract to do the deal. And he said, you know what? Gone are the days of requiring every single person to do something like that, to have a multi-year contract through a sponsorship. If we can put more butts in seats and sell more revenue, let's do it. And so I used his quote then to go to other teams. It's those other things that then those are fresh leads for reps. As soon as they're sold, well, yes, you can get a few games through that Costco offer that are great, but why don't we sell them into a 20 game plan or a half season? So thinking outside the box of what other supplemental, non-expensive ways can we make things happen that then the reps can use to bring ultimately more revenue to the team.
No, it's smart. It's all about expanding on your universe of potential customers at the end of the day. And I think to your point, the more we can open ourselves up, the better, right? Without creating too much friction for existing partners. One of the things I was going to mention, unrelated, but going back to the point of things that teams are doing differently, and I never thought I would see the day where we did this, was a unique problem that we have at the Giants is the cost of living in our market is excessive. And there are a handful of other markets. Chicago might be comparable to some extent, New York, LA, where the cost of living, it just doesn't match up with what a typical entry-level sales role for a sports team, would be able to provide. We've actually outsourced our entire group sales staff to a vendor that we partner with. So we actually have 6 remote group sales reps being managed by an outside entity. They're answering inbound phone calls. They're getting all of our group web forms. They're prospecting all of our past buyers. So, things like that literally seem so out of bounds prior to any of this is now the norm, right? We can afford to pay our rep in Buffalo enough to live. And that's a win for us at the end of the day. So the conversation now for us, even for, having staff on hand is, are we ever going to go back to the model of having a group sales team or an inside sales team in the building? Can we do what we're doing with our vendor right now, but bring that in-house and actually manage remote staffs around the country? Can we have a facility in Scottsdale, Arizona, as an example, where we run a nationwide sales team for some of these other products? So the thinking has just changed entirely of how do you find the right candidate pool? How do you make these jobs what the reps want them to be, and then find the right talent? So, Paige, you have the unique perspective of being able to kind of, couple together your time with the Rangers and your time with FIVO, and see things a little holistically, right? You've been pitched by companies like FIVO, and now you're walking in trying to support teams like the Rangers. Outside of even FIVO, what are you seeing work the most for companies in terms of kind of, bridging the gap right now?
That is a great question, Matt. And when you work for one team, and holistically it was 25 years, because I started the Dallas Stars with the Yellow Pages, which dates me right there. Started in 5th grade, and then you fast forward to 22 years after, working with the Rangers, and you have one path of how you see things. Yes, we pivoted. Yes, we evolved. Yes, we did things differently with, flexible, in some cases, flexible work opportunities, or not one thing that was important to me and was, okay, it used to be a competition, like who can work the most amount in hours, who can not take their vacation, and you're the coolest person in the room and you'll be promoted the fastest. So that used to be a thing, but it's not. And so it was really important that our team members saw their games. The world is not going to crash down if so-and-so misses a game and they're at their little league, things like that. But then looking at the other side of the world, when I read what all the opportunities at FIVO and then the benefits, I was shocked. I've never seen anything like it. And not that I'm trying to do a sales pitch for FIVO, but I am. It's little things like 6 months maternity or paternity leave. Like, who does that? I mean, there are companies that do, but not only if you're the one that has the baby, you get time off. Well, if your spouse works and then that maternity ends, you get an opportunity to take time off after, so the kiddo doesn't have to go to daycare if that's your choice. Things like benefits for holidays. You get your kids' birthdays off, you get your birthday off. And it's not one of those things, let's see if they're really going to take it. They actually support it. And then doing things, this was one that I had to ask, is this real? It's paternity. When someone gets a dog, they get 2 weeks vacation paid to bond with their animal. Because in a lot of cases, if there were ever a time that we're back to being at home all the time, it's not a bad thing to have a pet at home. So just thinking of different things that supplement someone's life versus it being their entire life. So your job should be something that drives you and motivates you and 99% of the time makes you happy. Yes, there's always challenges, but what can you do to help people look at their jobs, regardless if it's on the team side or vendor side, and be so excited to go to work every day? And a lot of it does depend on us pivoting collaborating with people who've been in the industry for a long time, people coming up, because it's different. Kids in college today are not wanting to get out of college and do the exact same things we did. So a lot of it is just looking at different benefits packages. For me, I get to work from home. That's something I never thought I would want to do in my whole entire life. I can't imagine not doing that because yes, I get to go on the road and see all the friends that I've made through the industry. I also get to be, drop off my kids and in some cases pick up the kiddos, and then just trying to think of ways that you can make everybody's life better, the people that are working for you and your clients. And a lot of that is being able to be your best self. And it's different than it used to be.
Yeah, I would also echo that too, Paige. I mean, in my 16 years here with the White Sox, it was always, who's first in, who's last out, and working ridiculous amount of hours when the team's in town. And we always had the work-life balance in mind, and we were always preaching that to make sure that you had that balance. But I think after what we went through in the last 2 years, we've really taken a hard look at that and been like, okay, what do we really need to have staffed on a game night here? Do we really need 10 people, or can we get away with 6, or whatever those numbers might be? And to your point, there's no need to be missing your kids' little league games to be here on a Tuesday in May when the team's in town. Work better, not work faster, not smarter, or smarter, not faster is what I meant to say there. But just, doing those types of things and really taking a step back and looking at what we're doing here.
One thing, and I know Rich would totally agree with me on this, it's coming from a place of leadership with empathy. I think if you support your humans that work for you and work with you, or you support even managing up, managing from a place of empathy now that we've all gone through these changes. I know every single one of us has probably lost someone, either we know or that we're family with due to the pandemic. And I think it just humanizes everybody. This was not singular to one state or one team. It was the entire world. And I do believe if we can all start at a place of like, how can we help people? Those people will run through a wall for you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I actually think we hit a little bit of a fever pitch kind of mid-pandemic when we had scaled our staff down so significantly. And I remember opening up the ballpark on June 25th to full capacity in 2021 and still having 5 sales reps and 4 service reps. And, the volume of work was untenable. And it was one of those things that we, kind of told everyone to fasten their seatbelts and we're going to get through this and don't worry. But, the reality was people were working 14, 16-hour days, working their Saturdays and Sundays. And it was really taking a toll on their mental health and their well-being and their enjoyment of their jobs. And, when we finally looked in the mirror and said, look, what are we focusing on here? There are things that are important, but are they urgent, in terms of the needs of our customers compared to the mental health of our employees, and compared to, just avoiding burnout and keeping morale where it needs to be. We entered this industry because it's supposed to be the fun business, right? Like that's why we got into it. And it is a lot of fun and we just can't lose sight of that. So I think, it's all about creating a positive culture and really trying to, put together the best group and celebrate the wins, right? And be there for each other during the losses and just go through it. I guess I'll start with you here, Rich, is, you're hiring people ongoing or periodically, what do you think the current talent pool is out there? What are they looking for in a job? And what changes have you guys made specifically to try to kind of cater to those wants?
You hit it on the head when you said culture. As we're going through the interview process with candidates right now, the first question they ask is, what's the culture like with the White Sox? What are you doing for my mental health? What are you offering as far as flexibility is concerned, as far as the work environment goes? And we're in a challenge right now. I think looks like you're sitting at your home right now working from home today. And Paige, you said you're working from home, but here at the White Sox, we're back in the office full time, which is a challenge. And it's a challenge that we're trying to overcome when looking for new talent because they want that flexibility to be from home for certain days of the week. And we do offer that on a smaller scale as needed. But it's something that as an organization, we need to look hard at to figure out if it's something we can do moving forward full time. Because a lot of the applicants that we're getting nowadays they want that flexibility. They want, that vibrant vibe at the organization, which we provide that in the sales department, and very team oriented. But it's that flexibility is the one key thing that I keep hearing over and over and over again from folks. And we do a good job of offering that flexibility when the team's on the road, and flexing schedules. And if you're here late one night, you come in late the next day or leave early, or we're very flexible in that regards. But that work from home piece is something that it's a challenge that we're still overcoming at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of saying before, I feel like the talent pool is just more discerning about the roles they're looking at. And to your point, they're coming in asking, can you provide? And they have their bullet points kind of listed out versus, when we came in and these jobs were still so shiny and still so, coveted, we take what we could get. You know what I mean? There's 1,000 other people behind you waiting for this job. Don't ask a lot of questions. Just say yes and go. And I got to give this generation a lot of credit for that, because, their futures are probably going to be, a lot brighter, to be honest, in terms of what they're going to be able to provide their staff, et cetera. And I feel better being able to provide my staff with these things as well. So it is hard to break habits. I can't lie. It's hard to teach old dogs new tricks. And a lot of us, have to pause before hitting send on that email at 11 o'clock at night. And but it's the right thing to do. And we're making those changes over time. Another thing that comes up frequently, and I think, look, again, being from the Bay Area, I'm sure it comes up more than most places, but I think this is a nationwide thing, is diversity and inclusion being a huge part, not just of the sports field, but, hiring throughout the nation, and how companies are trying to structure their workforce to be more representative and to, create a better kind of pool for ideating and brainstorming and having unique perspectives brought to the table. How is DE&I kind of factored into either your hiring or, your kind of long-term strategy at your company?
Well, for me, I mean, I'm a woman in sports, obviously. And I will say it was very different coming up 25 years ago. I mean, the things that you experienced 25 years ago, thank goodness it's not the same anymore. But I do think because of the pandemic, because of different things that happened in the United States, it forced people to take a look at the way they're doing business and pivot. And so it's so important when someone goes in and interviews for a job that they see people that are like them, and they're not walking into a place that it's completely to where they would feel like, well, why would I come work here? There's nobody like me here. Now it's like when the Rangers had a unique opportunity when we were able to promote during the pandemic, we were able to promote everybody that was still there into season groups or suite roles. So that gave us a very open, everyone can start at the same time opportunity for our new business development team / inside sales. And, I tasked the team, no, let's not just call and find out who the owner's friends are or the internship of someone that you went to college with. Let's go broaden what we're doing, look at completely different opportunities. Our HR department completely said no more. I mean, we are going to take time. And if it takes longer to get the right person, we need to do it. And for me, when I was looking at FIVO, I went online and saw there are almost as many women as there are men. There are very diverse people that are part of the FIVO culture, which is amazing. And I love it. And I know our owner's goal is to get it 50-50. And I know there's equal pay, whether you're a man or a woman. So it's out there. A lot of times you just have to find it. And I think people are more willing to ask the questions, where before, like you said, Matt, you walked in, yep, I can do that. Yep, I can fly through the sky if you need me to. Just put me in that cubicle and I can sell. Now people are asking the questions, and we should all encourage people. Like, do you see anything that, concerns you? Do you see anything that you feel like just from the few times you've interviewed that you think need attention? Like being willing to take the criticism, but also do something about it.
Yeah, it was funny because I had that conversation this morning with an employee who's hiring, just about, it taking time to find the right candidate for this role, and, it being a failure on him and those types of things. And I had to kind of tell him, like, this isn't a reflection on you. You're doing right. You're looking for the right fit here. And it's just going to take time, to your point. Like, we want to hire, again, a group of people that are representative of our community, that, are going to make us a more vibrant work environment. We're going to be accountable to that at the end of the day. And, ultimately what we want to foster is a more authentic workplace where people can be their genuine selves, and it's not a bunch of people walking around putting on a face for everyone else around them, right? Like that does us no good. So I think everybody's heading down a really great path there, but to your point, until you're willing to look in the mirror and recognize kind of, the part that you've played and the part that you want to play in for the solution, you got to kind of take that necessary step, as painful as it can be. So,
and one thing on that, I'm sorry, Matt, but something I learned from a friend of mine, she's a woman who runs a big company and they do a lot of philanthropic efforts in the community. She said, anytime now that they're looking to give a sports team or a big entity or an entertainment opportunity, before they ever even sign a contract, they ask, what does your executive or leadership team look like? And if it does not look diverse and does not represent the community, they won't give them the contract. So I'm so glad those things are happening, because again, we should pivot because it's the right thing, but also people that hold our feet to the fire are going to force it, which is a positive.
Yeah, and diversity has always been a very important piece here with the White Sox ever since I started working here. From our hiring process to everything. So it's very important. It's definitely driven home from our leadership team here.
And I'm not saying the Rangers were not. I'm just saying we could all do better, for the record. So
yeah, nobody's perfect. We can always improve on kind of where we are. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate all the time you guys have taken. I mean, it seems like, again, it's things are ramping back up, which is great. There's a lot of opportunities for us to be supported through technology and other, kind of unique relationships to keep our business humming along in a unique and different way, create flexibilities, and also to create that kind of perfect model for employment for a lot of our staff. I mean, that's what we're all, ultimately aspiring to here, is not cutting jobs, but making sure the jobs we have are the ones that people want, and not kind of toss away jobs that we could just, fill bodies and seats, which is one of the worst things I ever hear is, the referring to people as bodies always kind of gets to me. But, again, it's changing habits, it's changing cultures, and it's really forcing yourself to look at things in a more genuine way. It sounds like there's a lot of things we can do in terms of, fair pay, creating a positive culture, more benefits, better work-life balance, flexibility from work from home. All those types of things are ultimately what are, you're creating that culture that this next up and coming generation of really solid talent, the people I brought in have been great, by the way, are looking for. So, I think it's really great days ahead for all of us. We've learned a ton. We're going to continue to learn. And I'm curious, and this will be kind of my final question for both of you, is like, what have been the biggest takeaways from this experience for you in terms of interacting with staffs and hiring? And then what are you most excited for looking forward? And I'll start with you, Rich, on this one.
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway from the last couple of years is just looking at people and making sure they're doing okay. And genuinely asking that question, like more wellness check than anything, and forming that bond and that relationship with your staff members, letting them know that you're here for them, because over the last couple of years, we had staff members that were by themselves in their apartments, and, they had no one to reach out to. So it was important for us to make sure that we were genuinely asking them how they're doing and what we can be doing for them. Moving forward, I'm extremely excited for this young professionals that are coming into this business. I mean, the people that I'm meeting with now are sharp, and they're ready for this business, and they're going to take it to the next level. They're going to push us as, the dinosaurs of the business, to do better and to think differently and to really maximize what we're doing here. So it's very exciting times for our industry.
And then for the Rangers, I always go back, and it's going to take a long time not to say us when you're there, more than half your life. But one thing that I always appreciated is we had autonomy to do those things. It made people feel cared for, included, different kind of outings, allowing people to participate in management meetings or initiatives that weren't. But I will also say, because of the pandemic, it's allowed all of us to take it a step further, because all the questions that you've thought about asking or people may want to ask when they're coming through the interview process, it is completely appropriate to ask the questions that you personally care about. And again, I mentioned it before, but I'm most excited for people who embrace the leading with empathy, because it's okay to ask what are mental health benefits. Okay to say, you know what, I see a counselor, or this is my time for me that I need to step away, or, you know, I need to take a breath or a beat. And surrounding yourself by companies and people that allow for that are going to be, I think, the ones who succeed through all of it. Because yes, Rich, you call this dinosaurs. I will call them dinosaurs with wisdom. You know, so when you blend those cultures, the people that have been there and done that can be great mentors, but also listening, hearing, and learning and doing something about the people coming up. And I think bringing those two groups together, we all have a great opportunity.
Yeah, I really think the lines of communication have opened up from bottom to top nowadays, and it's a good thing. It's definitely a positive.
Yeah, I'll kind of just triple down. I'm just happy to hear both of what you just said, because we're all on the same page here. And, you know, it's okay to tell the story about walking 5 miles uphill in the snow, but then to follow it up with that sucked and was not fun, and I don't want to do that anymore. So I think that maybe is the difference here, is just recognizing that those pain points are things that we can solve for and not have to suffer through and have the people, you know, coming up beneath us suffer through as well. So, you know, we're always in solutions mode right now, which is just phenomenal. And that's why, you know, I never turn down, don't tell your friends this, Paige, but I never turn down vendor meeting requests. I always take them because I never know what's out there. I am that guy. I'm like, yeah, sure, I got 15 minutes. I'll hear you out. I'm a salesman. I love to be sold. So, you know, I'm always asking Jeff and Russ for more money than we have. But it's fun. And it gives me, you know, something to get excited about every day, is that, you know, maybe I'll be doing my job differently 6 months from now than I am today. So it's not always going to be rinse, wash, and repeat. So thank you both for taking the time today. I really, really appreciate it. I've known you both now for a long time. I'm sure I'm going to see you guys hopefully at a couple conferences coming up. But appreciate the time more than anything. And, you know, best of luck along the way.
You too. You guys are superstars. I'm happy to do it.
No, thank you, Matt.
Thanks, guys.